Hello everybody, this is section 2.4, which is the distributive property, but you're also going to combine like terms in this section, so I added that to the title up here because that's an important part of algebra. But the first part is the distributive property, and so I have it here. If you have 3 times 2x plus 5 in parentheses, that's a monomial on the outside, that's one term, and 2 terms on the inside separated by a plus sign. You need to use the distributive property, or if it was a minus sign. If it was just multiplication, so if it, for example, if it was just 2x times 5 inside, then you can just use PEMDAS and simplify. This becomes 10x on the inside, and 3 times 10x is equal to 30x. So you can simplify it that way. But if there's a plus or minus sign on inside of the parentheses, you cannot do that. You need to use the distributive property, and I'm going to try and color code it for you. So what you need to do is circle and rainbows to do it. You need to distribute the 3 into both the 2x and the 5. Okay. So I'm distributing it in by multiplying it. So 3 times a 2x is equal to 6x. And then I'm going to use a different color. 3 times a positive 5, because it's positive 5, is equal to plus 15. So there's a couple ways of thinking of that. You can either just drop the plus sign this way and say 3 times 5 is 15. Or you can think of it as 3 times positive 5 is equal to positive 15. Okay, so when I get this one here, 4 times 6x is equal to 24x. And then so here's what I get. 4 times negative 1 is equal to negative 4. Okay. Or the other way to think about it is drop the negative down, and 4 times 1 is equal to positive 4, so you drop the negative and put the positive 4. Okay, either one. If they give it to you this way, where the monomial is on the backside, you can distribute it in this way. I think it's easier if you just move the 2 to the left. So if I were you, I'll just move the 2 there. Okay, so I move the 2 from here to here, and now I can go the same direction. So 2 times 7x is equal to 14x. And then 2 times negative 8 is equal to negative 16. Okay, and that's an easy one because outside is positive, so it's there. Now I'm going to do some examples where it's negative on the outside. So in this case, if I take a negative 2, and notice I circle the negative with it, okay, the sign in front, times the 3x, I get negative 6x. And then when I do the negative 2 times a positive 4, I get negative 8. So negative 2 times positive 4 is negative 8. Or again, if you wanted to think of it this way, you could drop down the plus sign. So drop down the plus sign, and then negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. And then you just rewrite it as negative 6x minus 8. But personally, I like to save that step. So I just think of it as negative 2 times positive 4 is equal to negative 8. Okay. In this one, again, I'm going to circle the negative 5, and I get negative 10x. And then here's where it gets a little tricky. Negative 5 times, and notice I underlined the negative 7. Negative 5 times negative 7 is positive 35. Or if you did it in the other way where you only did the 7, it becomes negative 10x. Drop down the negative, and then negative 5 times positive 7 is equal to negative 35. And then this becomes, I'll do it this way, minus a negative 35, which becomes plus 35. So you get the same thing. Okay. So either way works. Be careful with this one. There's an invisible 1 in front of it, so I'm going to put a 1 here. If there's just a negative sign with a parentheses, it's like having a negative 1. And now I need to distribute the negative. And I'm just changing the sign. So negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x. And then negative 1 times negative 6, negative 1 times negative 6 is equal to positive 6. Okay, that's the distributive property. Should be pretty easy. Here's another section. So terms. Terms are any numbers or variables separated by multiplying or dividing. If there's plus sign like this, each one of these are terms. So the negative 2 is a term, the 3x is a term, and the 4 is a term. Okay? So in this case, the 3 is a term, the x is a term, 4xy is one term, and this 2x cubed is also a term. Okay? A constant is a number that doesn't have a variable, a number without a variable. So just like the number 22 or the number 7, which are my favorite numbers, but 22 is the favorite because you rock the deuces. Those are constants. They never change. Okay, in the case if it was in a expression or an equation. Like terms, here's the term, here's where you come to like terms. Like terms have the same variable and exponent. So they're terms with the same variable and exponent. So for example, 2x and 3x are like terms. X squared and 5x squared are like terms. Negative 4xy and 3xy are like terms because the x and the y are the same. Okay. In this case, these are the same because this is x squared yz, and actually if I move this around, I can rewrite this as x squared yz with the 3 in front, and now you can see that they have the same variable and exponent, so they are like terms. Okay. Whereas this case, 2x and 3y are not like terms, you cannot combine it. Negative 2x and 4x squared, because the one is x and the one is x squared, you cannot combine. The 7xy and the 5yz, they don't have the same variables. And in this case, the 8x squared y or the 9xy squared, they have different exponents. This is x squared, whereas this one is y squared. And that's why they are not like terms. Okay, so you cannot combine it. Okay, so here's how you combine like terms. So to say simplify. Okay, so in this case, what I would do is take the 2 and the 3, 2x plus 3x. You take the numbers in front, so the 2 and the plus 3, and it becomes 5, and then you just drop down the x, so it becomes 5x. Okay, you just take the numbers in front. The book also shows pull out the 2 and the 3, leave the x, same thing. In this one, I have a 2 here, and I have a plus 3. Because they're like terms, it becomes 5. And when I drop it down, I drop down the x. I didn't change the x. So in this case, when I drop it down, I leave the x squared. Okay, don't make it x to the 4th. When you multiply, it'll change the exponent. But when you're adding, you just add the coefficients or the numbers in front of the x squared, and then drop the x squared. In this case, I have 3 here, and I have minus 5. So 3 minus 5 is equal to negative 2, and then drop down the x cubed. So again, the x cubed doesn't change. So when you have like terms, drop down the variable and the exponents, but combine your coefficients. In this case, negative 4 minus 7 is equal to negative 11, and then drop down the x squared. Okay, that's how you combine like terms. Here's how you're going to combine some like terms after doing some distributive property. So we're combining things. The biggest mistake, or one of the biggest mistakes people do in this problem here, is they do this and they go 5x plus 1 and then try and distribute. Okay? In PEMDAS, you need to multiply before you add. In this case, 2 plus 3 is adding. But if you remember, I said when you distribute, you're actually multiplying. So this is like saying 2 plus 3 times x plus 1. So I actually need to distribute. So I'm going to do this. And notice I circled the positive 3, so I know when I distributed it, I'm multiplying by a positive 3. So this dropped down to 2. The 2 just drops down here. Okay. And then the plus 3x, plus 3 times x is plus 3x. Okay. And then the rainbow, the second rainbow, is positive 3 times positive 1, which is plus 3, positive 3. And now if I look at this, which of these are like terms? And if you said the constants, you are correct. You can combine the constant because those are like terms. So in this case, I would get 3x plus 5. If you wrote 5 plus 3x, that's okay, but usually we write the variable first and then the constant after. Okay. So again, here's another one, 4x minus 2. You don't subtract it because actually you can't even combine these because they're not like terms. But you want to do the multiplication first. So notice I took the negative 2. I took the sign with it. So when I drop this down, I get 4x. Negative 2 times x is minus 2x. And then negative 2 times positive 3 is negative 6. So I drop down to negative 6. Okay, and now I need to look for my like terms to combine. And yes, they are right next to each other, so that's easy. So again, 4x minus 2x. So 4 minus 2 is 2. So 2x minus 6. And I stop because I cannot combine those. Okay, one has x, one doesn't. So don't try to make this into 8x. Don't make this into negative 4x. You cannot combine these two. The 3x and the 5 are not like terms. Okay, and then here's a little tricky one. You need to put the negative 1 in front of it. Or you don't have to. I just do it so you can see it. And then again, I want to distribute. Don't try to subtract. Okay, don't try to do the 5 minus 1. So I need to distribute this in, so I drop the 5 down. Negative 1 times x is negative x, or negative 1x, same thing. And then negative 1 times negative 7 is equal to positive 7. Okay, and you can see I can combine the constants. Okay, and again, I'm going to take my variable with the sign first. So again, it's a negative x. Put that first. And then 5 plus 7 is equal to 12. So the answer would be negative x plus 12. Okay. And the last part here is writing an expression. So what you need to know, the word quantity means use parentheses. So when you see 3 times the quantity, x plus 5, it's saying put the parentheses around whatever comes after quantity. Okay. So 3 times is simple. 3 times quantity x plus 5 means x plus 5. 3 times x plus 5. But if you notice, we use the variable x a lot. So instead of writing your times this way, you can either put a dot like this, or because it's just 3 times that, you can just write it without the dot or the time sign. Okay, because this is saying 3 times the quantity x plus 5. Here's another one. The product of 7 and the quantity 8 minus y. So here goes the parentheses. The quantity x minus y. The product of 7 and this. So what it's saying is 7 times, because product is times, 7 times quantity 8 minus y. Okay? And again, you can rewrite it without the dot. Okay? And if it did say simplify, just so you know, try and do this, hit pause and simplify this one. Okay, go, hit pause and go. You should have got 3x plus 15. Okay, and then hit pause again and try this one. Ready, go. Okay, if they give it to you in this way where they put the number there, you can leave it as 56 minus 7y. If you rewrote it as negative 7y plus 56, that's okay too. Okay, and here's the last one. Go ahead and try this one on your own, and then hit pause and then come back to it. Okay, 9 divided by the quantity x plus 2. 9 divided by that. So there's a couple ways you can write it. 9 divided by the quantity x plus 2. Or you can write it as 9 over x plus 2. And because it's on the denominator, it's assumed that there's invisible parentheses. If you did put the parentheses, it would not be considered wrong, okay, because there's the word quantity. Another way that might be written this way, if they said 9 divided by the sum of x plus 2, when you say the sum, that would imply using parentheses as well, because it's saying you have to find the sum of x plus 2 and then 9 divided by that sum. Okay, that's the section on distributive property and combining like terms. Have an awesome day.